Hi, and welcome back to this Thursday edition of Focal Point AFR Talk. I am Brian Fisher, your congenial, convivial, and amiable host. And the question, 888-589-8840. We'll take some calls this segment. The question is, are we at the point the Founding Fathers were under King George III? I mean, Michael Cannon of Cato Institute is saying that's pretty much where we are. We have a lawless president not constrained by either the law or the Constitution. And it's the right of the people. It's a God-given, inalienable right of the people to alter or abolish a form of government that is destructive of their rights rather than protective of those rights. So do you think that we're at that point where we need to think about altering or abolishing our form of government? Michael Cannon says that we are. 888-589-8840. Now, here is Ted Cruz talking about the same thing. This is clip number 6, Rob. Ted Cruz talking about basically the same kind of thing. You know, and here's Ted Cruz in his own way saying that, look, President Obama is, in fact, becoming King George III.
One of the most disturbing aspects of the Obama presidency is the willingness of this president to disregard the law, to ignore the law. You know, we were talking a few minutes ago about Obamacare, and you mentioned it's the law of the land. If it's the law of the land, the president shouldn't keep ignoring the law. He unilaterally granted an exemption for big business for 1 year. The law says big business doesn't get an exemption, and the president just waved his hand and said, I'm granting them an exemption. He unilaterally granted an exemption for members of Congress. The law says members of Congress have to be on the exchange without subsidies, just like millions of Americans. The president just waved his hand and said, ignore that part of the law. I don't want to enforce it. And as you noted, when people started getting dismayed at the fact that his promise, if you like your plan, you can keep it, was demonstrated to be false, he told insurance companies, well, ignore that part of the law for 1 year. A president under a constitutional system doesn't have the ability to pick and choose which laws to follow, and that's the same pattern you see in dictatorial societies, where the leader says, ignore the law, go with the power of the president instead of the written law. That's not the way our Constitution's supposed to work.
So that's Ted Cruz saying, look, that's the same pattern that you see in dictatorial societies, where you have a political leader who says, look, ignore the Constitution, ignore the law, go with this political leader instead of the written law. And we are a nation of laws. We are under the rule of law, not under the rule of men. But Ted Cruz is saying that's not what we have here. Michael Cannon is saying that's not what we have here. Now, here is Jonathan Turley. Number to call if you want to weigh in on this subject, 888-589-8840. Do you think we're at the place the Founding Fathers were prior to the Declaration of Independence? Is Barack Obama becoming King George III? And is it time to think about doing what the Founding Fathers did and having our representatives meet together to alter or abolish the form of government? Is that where we are at? What do you think? Jonathan Turley, George Washington University. This guy's way left. And listen to what he has to say. Representative Bob Goodlatte from Virginia is talking to him yesterday in a congressional hearing, and here's how their exchange went. Let's listen.
Professor Turley, the Constitution's system of separated powers is not simply about stopping one branch of government from usurping another. It's about protecting the liberty of Americans from the dangers of concentrated government power. How does the president's unilateral modification of acts of Congress affect both the balance of power between the political branches and the liberty interests of the American people?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The danger is quite severe. The problem with what the president is doing is that he's not simply posing a danger to the constitutional system. He's becoming the very danger the Constitution was designed to avoid. That is the concentration of power in branch. This Newtonian orbit that the three branches exist in is a delicate one, but it is designed to prevent this type of concentration. There's two trends going on which should be of equal concern to all members of Congress. One is we've had the radical expansion of presidential powers under both President Bush and President Obama. We have what many once called an imperial presidency model of largely unchecked authority. And with that trend, we also have the continued rise of this fourth branch. We have agencies that are now quite large that issue regulations. The Supreme Court said recently that agencies could actually define their own or interpret their own jurisdiction.
Okay, so Jonathan Turley, left-wing law professor President Obama is posing a quite severe danger. He's not simply posing a danger to the constitutional system. He is becoming the very danger the Constitution was designed to avoid, and that is the concentration of power in a single branch. Well, let's go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Do you think we're where the Founding Fathers were in the 1760s and 70s? Let's go to Nick in Conroe, Texas. Nick, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I enjoy your talk, your radio talk a lot, and I've been learning from you for the past 2 years, and this is my thought. I believe that this is the time for the Republicans and Democrats to shine and get together and put pressure on the Congress and show the real people out of them that we can get together and forget about who you are or what party you are in, and if that doesn't work, that means that we have an imposter president, we have imposter people working in the White House, and the people need to act together.
All right, Nick, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you for listening, and I'm glad you've been with us, and I'm very happy to hear that you've been learning on this program. Nick's saying we need something bipartisan here, and you look at Jonathan Turley. This guy is a left-winger. So here you have a conservative, Ted Cruz, you have a libertarian, Michael Cannon, and you have a liberal, Jonathan Turley, all of them saying exactly the same thing. We have a lawless president who is out of control, who is acting in ways that are contrary to the law, contrary to the Constitution. He has no moral, legal, statutory, constitutional authority to do what he's doing. He's behaving in the way that dictatorial societies behave. And according to Jonathan Turley, this represents a severe danger to the Constitution itself. Very quickly, let's go to Robert in Bryan, Ohio. One last call. Robert, what's on your mind?
Yeah, first I like listening to your program, and I'd like to start off by saying I had this sign on my front door for quite a while. It said, "You've been bushwhacked. Prepare for an Obama land." Let's say that both me and you went to the same high school. We were on the same football team, and out of 300 million people, they picked me and you to supposedly be opponents and run for candidates. You were Democrat or Republican, and I was the opposite. But yet we hung out together. Now, I guess the point what I want to make is way back when Bush and Kerry were supposedly running for office, they both went to Yale University. To the best of my knowledge, they were both the members of the secret little club called the Skull and Bones.
Uh-huh.
Out of 300 million people, what are the chances if the political scene is not totally rigged? What are the chances of those guys rubbing shoulders together in high school and college, and then turning out to be supposedly run against each other?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you say that, Robert, but, I don't see anything particularly sinister there myself. I understand why people, might have some suspicions there. But, places like Yale and Harvard, they attract the brightest Americans that we've got. They have schools of government. There's kind of an expectation if you go to Yale, go to Harvard, a lot of you are going to go into public service. So if you happen to kind of meet there at Yale and Harvard, and both of you wind up kind of in political spheres, political office, I don't see anything particular sinister about that, other than that they're coming out of an institution that's brainwashing everybody back into